Hey, good morning,
Hello.
good
Good
evening, and good afternoon. So we're checking the time zones, and people are either having their cup of coffees in APAC or they're having a glass of wine in the UK, but in EMEA, but in the US, I think we've got work time. We were just discussing this. So wherever you are, hello, 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 and to one of my favourite people in the world, Claire de Souza. Hello.
Oh, thank you. One of mine too.
Ah, this is so exciting. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. It's been quite a long day, but I'm really excited about this.
I've had a really short day. I haven't been up for very long
You've
at all.
really just woken up.
I've literally only just woken up and I've just finished my cup of tea. Yeah, so basically, we are in our pajamas now. We have I don't know how big our UK contingent is, but one of my favourite brands. It's like a legacy brand. Love it love it or hate it in the UK. Marks and Spencers. We are wearing your pajamas.
And they're really comfy.
Yes, really, really comfy. So it was quite nice rolling out of bed this morning. And Claire, you were just saying you had a long day, and you were just like, "I can't wait to get in my pajamas." So when we're sort of doing the run through of this, we're like, you know what? Let's just wear our pajamas because this whole session is going to be about being authentic. And what does authentic mean in this day and age? Does authentic mean of contrived authentic or authentic authentic? I might have some lip balm on, but I promise there's no mascara. So it was a bit about kind of being clear that Claire and I have known each other for a while. This is like our favorite thing to talk about, that we were happy to do this in our pajamas because we often do, because we're on opposite sides of the world, literally. So we are often literally having conversations about this kind of stuff in our pajamas. But Claire, please intro yourself to the minuscule amount of people on this who don't know you. Please intro your.
Sorry, my throat. I look after an employer brand for a large UK retailer and also co-founded the EB space with my good friend Alex. So yeah,
Alex
that's a bit
Hurd, name drop
about
Alex.
me.
You have to name drop Alex. Sorry, I just talked over you then at the end because I got excited about Alex, who has had a little baby, for those of you who don't know.
He's very cute, yeah.
Claire is one of the most knowledgeable. See, I haven't even had coffee yet, people I know. And so we've been trying to get her to do a session for a while. And I can't remember how we managed to finally do this, but I'm super excited. So I'm Elle Green, VP Partnerships at Marketech, in case you don't know me. And I've been in employer brand telemarketing for a very long time. But as Claire and I know, doesn't mean I know best. So one of my goals in life is chat to people like Claire who do know best and are sort of doing things live. And we're going to have a bit of fun today. So I'm just we're having a bit of our preamble as everyone starts joining, because it does take people a little bit, we understand. But what we're going to cover today, just so you know, is a bit about, if we're talking about how to hire and attract critical talent, got to give them the information they know. So there's a balance of giving to what they need to know about you and what you want to tell them, because like it or not, I'm going to say the truth here. Or as Claire says, I'm not big in this. Everybody, and we all do it, we fall in the trap of saying what we want to say, forgetting about what people want to hear. So if you're trying to hire really hard to fill, really critical talent, we really want to help you understand innovative approaches to crafting employee content, so leveraging the voice of your people. The big topic on everybody's lips at the moment, harnessing the power of AI in various forms. Quite high level, we're not going to deep dive too much, but hopefully give you a bit of inspiration. And then 3 is really creating a candidate-centric journey that will help set your organisation apart. And this is something particularly Claire is super, super passionate about. Anything you want to add to that, Claire? I almost called you Claire Bear in public, and I've just done that.
That'd be hilarious. No, I think it's going to be a really good chat. I think we've got to try and not go off on a tangent. Or rather, I've got to not go off on a tangent. But yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting.
All right, amazing. So let's get started. Everyone should be joined by now. So for each of those 3 strategies, We had more fun during the brainstorm. We actually almost did the LinkedIn Live in our brainstorm, as we were trying to bring together sort of all our top tips based on community feedback, our experience. And we really did have great fun. We've got some great things to share with you. So to kick us off, we really started with one of the key pillars of talent brand, which is employee content and authenticity. But authenticity is bandied around so much, right? Hence the pajamas.
It's everywhere. I think I wrote a post and I think I said it about 3 times, but it was deliberate. But so it's also the same as human-centric content, which I think is another one of my pet peeves at the moment. It's more that I think you just get all these buzzwords and then you're trying to create content around a buzzword. And actually, if you just strip the buzzword back, what does it mean? And essentially, it's being real. It's not being polished. It's just being natural. But also, there can be a room for polished content if you've got a brand that actually prefers it. It doesn't make a story any less bad, but I think you've got to work with what you've got, and you can get some really interesting stuff around it. But yeah, human-centric content and authenticity are 2 of my biggest pet peeves at the moment, I think.
Yeah, totally. And do you think it's balanced the 2? Like we talk about, like, you know, the strategy of like having still the time and place for hero images and getting your message clear, but then a balance of how you sort of amplify and extrapolate that and interpret it in different markets and get different perspectives.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's also knowing that what works in one place won't work somewhere else. So I think it's really, local's great. And also, if you've got a really big business or a business that's really different, a strategy that works in one part of that business will not work for someone else. You've got to meet people where they're at, and you've got to find somebody's story where they're at. I've taken part in videos before where we've had colleagues who they just come and they've just been singing to us because it's been doing Christmas videos or something like that, and it's been really exciting. But we've not prompted them to do it; they're just really happy. And I think it's just going to see someone where they're at and actually walking in their shoes. You'll get the best out of them. If you're asking someone to go to a studio and it's a bit uncomfortable, you're not going to get like their best story or their best anything because it's unnatural for them.
Yeah, I always use the analogy, and if I could say analogy, that's what I'd use. That you could ask me 5 minutes beforehand, say, oh my God, there's a conference on, you know, talent marketing, whatever it is. I'm supposed to present in front of 1,000 people. I'm sick. I'm drunk, whatever it is. Please, could you do it? And I could go on stage in a second and happily talk to everyone. But put a video or camera or just or an ordinary camera in front of me, and I freeze and stumble and the ums and ahs. So yeah. I think, yeah, you're quite right. It's meeting people in different places where they like to be behind the scenes, whether it's written, whether they like to be behind a video, whether it's, or whether, as you say, it's doing their own thing. But it's meeting, I like that, meeting people where they are. Yeah. Makes absolute sense to me. So I'm just 1,000 people, but nothing on my own.
Something like that. I think it's also like, whenever there's something new, everyone hops on it. It's a bit like it's a bit of a trend. You've got to do everything that's the same as everyone else. And actually if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think we're going to go into that for something else a bit later, I know, but I think it's the same thing when you're looking at your employee content. I think what works now will still work. Look at how it's resonating with people. Look at how it's engaging with people, with actually your other colleagues. Like, how do other people like it? Once you get a first follower for something, you'll get loads of people who want to jump on the same bandwagon. But I think it's just, you see something, it's shiny, it's a bit like a magpie, you go after it, and actually you don't need to, because what you've got already is brilliant.
Well, maybe.
Maybe, hopefully.
And I think when you were saying about like the follower piece, I don't know if you remember, this is from years ago, and I think I would have been presenting. I always reveal my age on these sessions. About 10 years ago, I think I was presenting. There's that I think it's a British clip of a music festival, and this dude just like doing some crazy dancing all on his own. He's just in his space. He's happy. He's doing his thing. I might have to share it afterwards. And then slowly but surely, you see people like nudging, looking, laughing at him. And then by the end of it, everyone's dancing with him. And I think that's a great analogy. I think I used this when I was on LinkedIn. It's not about building a following, but actually like attracts like. And sometimes you don't know that you want to be dancing like a loon. Actually, I always want to be dancing like a loon. But, now as I get older, I'll be like, oh, what are they doing? And then before I'm up there, before I know it, I'm there throwing some shapes. But my point about this is people attract people, like attracts like. So however you're doing it, and why are we talking about employee content, authentic content? It's because they are the people that have the networks. They are the people that will attract more of the same. So if you want an organization of people dancing like loons, get one of them doing it and the rest will follow. But
100%.
Analogy aside, tech people know what tech people like, nurses know what nurses like, that environment. So don't be pig-headed enough to think that you know best. Allow your people that freedom a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really true. I think it's also comes down to the bits with you around what's innovation. I think go back to your shiny and new, but then also always thinking that you've got to change what you're doing. And I think innovation can mean so many different things to so many different people, but it can be as simple as you've always been on LinkedIn and now you suddenly decided that you're going to be on TikTok. That's brilliant. But what innovation doesn't have to be groundbreaking. It doesn't have to be, throwing everything out the window and starting new. It can be something really simple, but for you and for your organization, it's actually really innovative.
Yeah, totally. And like innovation could just be being vulnerable, for example. We were working with one of our clients recently, and they were trying to do a D&I campaign for International Women's Day. I'm sure this resonates with a lot of people. And their default was almost just sharing, another career piece. And just default was to be super professional. That was fine. But we had to work really hard with them to say that actually this has to come from the heart. If you want to cut through, if you're being just, this has to be real, your stories. And so actually innovation to them was doing some videos, but actually being vulnerable, open and honest, for example.
And I really like that. I think also like with those DE&I campaigns, I saw someone post and they said, I'm not posting on International Women's Day. She posted on the Monday. And actually, just a Monday afterwards, I actually really liked that because actually the point was, yes, everyone does this roll up to these weeks. Everyone does, we're celebrating our females, and that's brilliant. And it's really good to do that. But what do you do the week after and the month after?
Yeah, totally.
Organizational policies, like, do they hold up to that? And I think that's like with your content to tie it back, you have to have an element of truth in terms of what you're saying. So if you've got people going out and they're saying, I've got flexible working, do you have a flexible working policy? Like, what actually do you have that supports stuff that people are saying? And then that what you're saying, I'm not going to say the A word, but it's true and it's real and it's great stuff and people really resonate with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the other thing is when you're thinking about doing this, and you were talking about TikTok earlier, for example, and it's funny, TikTok, I feel like, there's sort of these undulating hills as people use TikTok, don't use TikTok, use TikTok, don't use TikTok. And I think, but I think more organizations are exploring more channels of how they use it and the perception of how they use a channel. So, I think LinkedIn doesn't have to be stiff and corporate. I mean, please, I say this so many times, please don't post another photo of your dog or your cat or a laptop by the beach.
Or a selfie.
Pardon?
Or a selfie.
Yeah. You said the selfie one. I'm not going to stop laughing. Oh no, anybody hysteria hits in, no more selfies. But but yes, it doesn't have to be stiff and corporate. I feel like it's going to the other extreme. So it's actually understanding your channels, but it doesn't have to be quite as casual as LinkedIn. But I think taking the time to understand your brand.
Yeah.
And then, okay, who, as you were saying earlier, which maybe talent segment or which audience can we be fun and use TikTok, or where do we use LinkedIn and be a bit more corporate and straight? And I sometimes think there's not enough thought that goes into, I'm sorry, people, sweeping generalization, but not just which channels you use, which talent segments and which people can be authentic in those channels.
Yeah, and I think you can tackle, when you use different channels, you can really tackle perceptions about yourself as a brand. So one I really love on TikTok is UPS, because being really honest, the colours of UPS, I'm sorry if anyone from UPS is on here, but the colours from UPS are just really boring. It's brown. But you go into a TikTok and it's a bit like it's a bit like a bundle of joy, because it brings life into the whole channel, and it's really fun. And they do all these different, I mean, I was on it earlier, but they do all these like different little videos and things that are on trends, and it's actually just really fun going on there. But you just tackle your brand perception, and you can breathe life into a different part of your organization or your company that people didn't think was on there, and it tackles their own perception of it as well, which I think is a really nice thing about new channels. And when you want to think about where you're going to put different types of content, I think it's thinking about, how do you want to turn up? What part of you do you want to show? Do you want to be really corporate? That's okay. Do you want to show more of your softer side? That's okay. One of the channels I love on Instagram is Life at PwC. I love it just because it's always got a bit of a golden, warming, really cuddly moment when I go in there, and I'm like, I love the stories. Like, I've stalked this channel for a long time. If I'm having a bad day, I go onto that channel, but I love it. And it's just a really good channel. But you look at PwC on the outside and you think corporate. Like, that's your first thought. But there's so many people stories behind there. There's people behind the brand, and I think that's lovely when you're going on to, and you see different elements of your brand and you bring it to life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should show, hey, actually, we're going to show the UPS video. So while Chelsea's perhaps setting that up, oh, that was really quick. I was going to say, I'm just going to pause because I've seen that Alex is sitting in, so we have to wait and say, good morning, Alex.
Or is it afternoon for you?
Oh yeah, good afternoon. I hope the bub's been sleeping. Sorry, back to this is why we end up, sorry people, when Claire and I chat, this is why a half-hour chat ends up into an hour and a half, and sometimes I have to message work if I've got a meeting saying, sorry, on to Claire, and they're like, right, going to make a coffee. So we've got the UPS example here, because I love this one. I agree with you, it's a great one you brought up.
My daughter's first day on the job as AAP's helper, working with Dad. Lots of packages.
You ready? Here are your free.
My husband has been looking forward to this day for so long.
Okay.
Are you there? Have we got another one, Chelsea? Was that, we're just doing that one? There you go, authentic live. I think, oh no, we've got another one. There we go.
How much stuff do you need to be happy? I don't know. How much stuff is there?
This does remind me of myself, actually. Whenever it comes to like Cyber Monday or Black Friday, I'm like, oh dear, parcels.
Oh, yes. It's like Christmas every day here. During COVID, my husband sort of would just shake his head because I was on first name terms with the delivery driver. I think I started leaving him a cup of tea in the morning. Sorry, but UPS, I like, totally not what you'd expect, right?
And I think that's a nice thing. I think that's a nice thing about it. Like, if you look at loads of different channels, they're pretty much all following the same trends. You got the same music. Like, you can scroll on TikTok, and I'm a lurker on TikTok. I don't really post anything, but it's always the same music, but the video is always different. Like, the output's always different, even if people are following the same trends. And I think you don't have to be a Thomas Edison. You don't have to do something crazy brilliant. Not saying you can't, but you can. But I think on some channels, I think stuff is given to you, and when you translate that into your brand, you'll find something that's really brilliant and unique anyway. And sharing that will really resonate with the audience that you're trying to attract. No,
agreed. Another really good example, I think, is Washington Post. Their corporate account has a mix of both corporate and employer brand content. It's got like 1.7 million followers. Makes sense. I'm one of them, right? So, but this, what I like about this is they've got when we were talking earlier, about the balance, where they've got the blend of corporate news stories and then employee content really highlights how you can, for me, like, it's the epitome of how you can mix up your content, show alignment between your corporate employer brand. They've really got it right. It's that whole thing, we talk about sort of the inside out, internal brand is your external brand, etc., etc., etc. So while the videos seem a bit scripted and planned, they've still got a really down to earth and approachable style, which is not necessarily what you would associate with Washington Post. And they've got a bit of music, captions and trends for me to really capture the hearts. And I think it's future employees. Because in my mind, and we've talked about this, so I feel like I'm sort of sharing something for the first time with everyone else, but not with you. Every organisation needs to be future-proofing right now. Like, because the shift you're going to see in the next couple of years is going to be huge. The audience, the demographics, and I think these guys do it really well. I think we've got another one to show here, Chelsea, if I'm right. Thank you.
Now it's time for What Do You Do at the Washington Post? Stephen, what do you do?
I'm the database editor for investigations.
Well, that sounds super interesting. Can you tell me more?
Yeah, I mean, the last story I worked on, I went through about 23,000 court cases by hand and pulled in the data for a story we were working on.
Boy, was that a blast or what?
It was not.
All right, Stephen, you keep doing stuff.
Yeah, like perfect. But again, for me, that's another example, though, of just because one person looks at that and thinks, oh my God, I could not do that. You will have all the people that do want to do that going, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And in another life, I totally would have done that. So again, I love the fact that they're not afraid to have a bit of personality, leverage the idiosyncrasies and the nuances of different talent segments, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the next slide is for Claire and I, and for you guys. But I feel like when it's just the two of us on our own, we need to be reminded to breathe. Claire and I talk, we get so excited, we often talk over each other. I have never seen us be so respectful of each other's airspace as we are this morning. This feels wholly unnatural, Claire. So when we were running through this, I was like, please can we have slides to remind us to breathe?
Yeah, I'm trying to take a minute and be like, don't butt in yet. Wait. It's not
take a minute to breathe.
that yeah.
I actually don't mind it at all. I wish I hadn't finished my tea. I could have had a sip of tea in a breath. But yes, thank you for reminding us to breathe, Chelsea. So moving on to my favourite topic, artificial intelligence. Well, it's my favourite and my worst all at once. Everybody knows what that is. For those of you who don't know, obviously I'm part of the MarTech, and we specialise in helping organisations hire and retain critical talent through AI-powered content and advocacy. So super passionate about this, and we try and help companies stand out with authentic content and social proof that really resonates with talent, no matter their location, title, or identity. For me, it's about shifting the perceptions of what inclusivity is. Because when we talk about, from an organisation, about inclusivity, people always think about DE&I, ESG groups, etc. AI, and this is, for me, the power of it, AI enables inclusivity from both an organisational perspective and from an employee perspective. So we worked, for those of you that are our clients, or you know who you are, we work with like global organisations. They have regions, for example, that don't have any budget or support for hiring because they have their own critical talent, but they're maybe not business critical. So AI allows them to, from an organisational perspective, allows them to actually be inclusive and be part of these talent strategies, but also allows employees who don't shout the loudest enough, not like Claire and I. Actually, we don't talk a lot. But people that may not feel comfortable, let's say, putting their hand up to do something, or as we said, in front of video, or want to be written. So inclusivity is allowing anybody to have a voice. or a narrative in their organization, but organizations to allow everybody that has a requirement, a passion, or a need to attract talent to be part of the journey. So for me, AI really has shifted. It shifted the landscape of how organizations be inclusive and hire and globalization, etc. So we've got some really good tips for you today on how you can harness the power of AI to reduce costs, save time, and attract critical talent. And we love a top tip. 7 is my lucky number. So bring us home with this one, Claire.
Oh, 2 is my lucky number. Anyway, I think balance actually is really important when it comes to AI, because I think if you use it, it can really be a tool that helps you. I think when it was starting to be used a bit more, it's going to take my job, it's going to replace things, and actually if you use it to its advantage, it can be brilliant. There can be pros and cons to it, though. I think you can see a LinkedIn post that's been written with AI a mile off when it's just emoji heavy and every other word is an emoji, and that actually doesn't end up being accessible for someone who's reading it, where they've got descriptions on for all those emojis, and also it's just very heavy. But if you use it in balance, if you're writing something, you might want to type in something and go, does this help me with what I'm writing? Does it sense check something? I think it can be a great tool. I don't think it can replace everything, but I think if you work in tandem with it and have that balance, I think it can be your best friend and help you get things done. So I think it's brilliant.
I'm going to remind you one of these days that you just said AI can be your best friend. I'm being
no.
It's not taking you replace me with AI. You did it. My day is over. I'm going back to bed after this. No. in all honesty, I mean, it's a great point. I mean, AI should be used to reduce the time you spend on admin and basic tasks, so you can focus your energy on the bigger picture, right? On life, on strategy, the fun stuff. Like, it doesn't replace your brain, but it can do actually, or it can prompt your brain, but it takes away you can use it to pump up your weaknesses, right? And isn't that what we as humans can use, like tools and processes and people that that balance out our weaknesses? But don't let it take away your strength or your strategy, your bit that you love. So use it, for example, if I think about our platform, to find the right advocates or create questions or transcribe videos, for example. And I'm one of the ways, as a tangible example of this, that the Martech platform does it, is for AI. And I always get really shy. It's not about spooking us. I just like giving life examples. But using AI for writing job ads, basic task, one of the most important parts of the candidate journey. I'm surprised you're not chuckling more, Claire. And we'll speak a bit more about
holding it in.
We will speak about this a bit more later. But why do not companies just diminish job ads to a basic task that's done really well? Like, why do they just not do that? It seems one of the most basic things you could outsource. So it's so important. So shift the focus of what you want the candidate to do rather than the task of writing the ads. I was hired, very first job in Australia. I was hired to train over 500 recruiters on how to write job ads, agency recruiters. I kid you not. The time, the money, the effort that went in that. Imagine if they could just use AI. I had a platform that did it well for you. Actually, they're not my.
And one of my jobs, I had to write.
Sorry, Claire.
Sorry, we're doing it now. I said one of my jobs, I had to write around. I think I calculated I had to write 300 or 400 ads, and one of the leaders at the time had a real liking for the word robust, and every single advert had to have the word robust in it. I hate the word now, but I remember you had AI at the time, and it could have just saved me probably my sanity, but also just not everyone's a writer. Not everyone knows how to take an advert and create something really compelling with it, because it's not their natural wheelhouse, and that's absolutely fine. But if you've got a tool that can do it for you, amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And it buys you time back. So if you are looking, and remember the whole purpose of today is looking at critical talent, there are so many things you need to do to attract critical talent, like market mapping, building your EVP or your messaging, or looking at comp parity, or thousands. I haven't had coffee yet. You know what's going on in my brain. They're all flying and I can't pick one out of my brain, but there's so many tasks you could be doing to attract critical talent. Writing a job ad is not one of them. It really isn't. So, it's the idea is like harnessing AI to give you time back to do the things that actually make a material impact, and use AI to do the things that would take you far too long to do, as you just said, not your natural wheelhouse.
Yeah, I like that. And I use it as I like it as my sounding board sometimes. So if I'm trying to write something where I get a bit stuck, I will happily open, an AI tool, whether it's ChatGPT or something else, and type whatever I'm writing into it. It spits out something that probably does not sound like me at all, but it makes me think. And I think that can be quite a fun bit from it. Actually, it allows that extra thinking time, or prompts your brain to go, oh, actually, I need to go down that direction. I need to do something else, or, oh, this has really, really helped me. And so I quite like using it as a sounding board, and also having a bit of fun with it. I've had a lot of fun generating various random images with it for various card competitions or things that I'm entering, and I really want to win for no other reason than personal pride. But I'm like, what can I use AI for? And the things that it can generate and mash all together, it's really quite fun. And I'm not saying that it takes away from actual creativity, and I say that with a lot of sincerity, because in my spare time when I have that, but I have my little art business, so actually I love actual creativity and doing things. But I think it can help people who aren't naturally creative come together with something. Again, I think it's that tool, it's that sounding board, and I think it can just be something that helps you in your day to day.
And talking of day to day, hands up if you don't have enough hours in the day.
That's 2 hands.
Yeah, I was going to say, the person who is always awake when I have my coffee in the morning, want a quick chat. So yeah, but one of the things I feel like everybody's saying is, I'm really busy, I don't have enough hours in the day. It's my mantra, not enough hours in the day. And I think everybody's feeling like that right now. So I think looking at a platform that can save, and I had this, and I don't know if I'm going to say Nick Thompson, I'm calling you out here. I had this conversation with Nick Thompson a while ago, and I love brainstorms with him, with you, very different, but he's just as opinionated like you, which I love, because I'm not opinionated at all, of course.
I'm not opinionated, I'm meek and mild.
But we were talking about the fact that getting a tool or platform in a place that saves you hundreds of hours does not diminish your value to an organization. I feel we're talking about the fact, I say we, Nick and I, and then you and I talk about that. People feel like if we say, oh, here's something that's going to save me hundreds of hours, that because we're all running around saying, I'm so busy, I haven't got enough time, hours in the day, that suddenly you're not as valuable to an organization. Well, I call BS on that. But I understand why people feel like that. I get it. We're all trying to prove value, right? But if you flip that and say, in fact, it increases your value to an organization, as you can use your brains in other ways to bring and drive even more value and outcomes. And as I said, focus on those critical talent segments and strategies and research and all the stuff we want to be doing. So, if we look at, for example, if we're talking about saving hundreds of hours, let's look at how AI can save time for one recruiter to write a job. Oh, here's what I prepared earlier, to write a job out. So
just like that.
What was that, darling?
Is it just like that? It's like magic.
Just like that. Magic, AI. But if we look at this, for 3,000 job ads without AI, we've got 3,300 job ads. We got 225 hours on our calculation if it takes 45 minutes to write one job ad. And I say, and we've crowdsourced this, 45 minutes is pretty average for somebody to write a job ad, even if they're cut and pasting the bloody job description and then doing something different. 225 hours a year. I haven't got 225 hours a year. Whereas, imagine if you can use AI, 10 minutes to write the job ad, and it's taking you 50 hours, saving up to 150 hours per year per recruiter every year. Imagine you can go back to the organization as the head of TA and say, hey, look, I've just saved us a shit ton of hours. And that's only on 300 job ads. Most organizations have 3,000 or 30,000 a year. So for me, it's about saying, let's bring something else in that saves our people, our valuable people, time doing something else. I feel like I'm really stating the obvious here. Shall I get off my soapbox? This is where I need the breathe slide, Chelsea.
I think that there's a really good point in that I think if you think about, and this is especially true for I think most employer brands I talk to, you go into a new organization, you've got your strategy, you want to go after these big projects and they're really shiny, and then you never get there because you're playing whack-a-mole, because something's going wrong over here or over there. And especially if you're a solo talent brander, it can be really hard to like get everything that you need to get done because you're constantly fixing all the problems or the leaves of the tree rather than being able to tackle the root. And I think if you look at all the metrics that you measure, you're looking at your time to hire, but actually if you flip it back on yourself, you have an idea, but what's your time to execute it? And if you're saving so many hours, like a year, and you're going, right, this tool or this thing over here is going to save me all this time so I can go and execute that project a lot quicker, then actually you're being much more valuable to your organization because you're showing how much more how better you are with your time efficiency. And I think that can be a really, really valuable thing. So when you're saving the time somewhere here, what else can you go and spend it on? And that can be your big projects.
Yeah, sounds like the voice of experience here. Let's look more specifically about how AI then can support talent brands. We've looked at it for talent acquisition. If we're looking for talent brand, I mean, that's insane. Like brief 30 minutes, copywriter, 3 days for employee answering, 6 hours per blog times 100, 600 hours. I mean, that's just insane. And so, I mean, from our community, from yours and Alex's EB community, our clients and everybody we could talk to, they're like, we're lucky. They're saying lucky if they can create one blog a week. It's like, oh yeah, we've got a couple sitting here, and it's just so hard for people to do. Whereas AI can bring that down to an hour per blog, so 100 hours for 100 blogs. Sometimes when I'm doing a demo of the platform to people, and I literally can turn it around within, 8 minutes. I mean, it's not the best blog in the world in 8 minutes, but actually it's better than what they have. And that's the other thing, remembering, is that this isn't authentic content, is not about perfection. It's about insights, perspective, and multiple perspectives, being able to reach different people. As you said earlier, about allowing people who aren't writers to write, to be scalable, to be inclusive. If you think about your candidate and don't think about you as the corporate organization, they would much rather read 10 blogs or 10 perspectives of what it's like to work within your organization, or what innovation means in your organization, or what a day in the life looks like, or, going to be a bit of thought leadership. 10 people that's, an 80%, again, conversation I had with Nick Thompson, 80% insight and perfection, and 10% a little bit woolly around the edges because you've allowed AI to do it. But still, their insights, it's still personal. Then one piece of content that sounds like it's been created from the organization, that actually doesn't give them perspective. So it's about the scalability, perspective, and insight. So, and how do you do that? And I'm thinking about, if you're saving time, again, if we're using our platform, you're looking at different workflows, you can send employee prompts, you can use platform languages, you can change the workflows, you can pivot in real time, and you can experiment, which is, I think, what you're saying as well. Have the freedom to experiment with, do we want to do languages? Actually, let's change that question and do everything in real time, which has not been possible or affordable for a lot of organizations to do to date.
And I think adding on to that inclusivity part, I think giving people a voice where they don't think they've had a voice. If you're an organization that's going after blog writers and you want to have written stuff for your careers website or whatever you're publishing it on, and people will deselect themselves, so they go, I can't write. But they actually might have an incredible story. And the moment you open the door and you say, hey, I've got this tool, and you just need to input your little bits here and it will do it for you, and they can change it and add it and put it into their own voice, you've got a game changer, because suddenly you're opening up the door to people who have already deselected themselves from your content plan because they don't think they can do something. And I think that's what makes it like quite a great tool to use and actually very enriching.
Yeah, Yeah, I love that. And I think that's the thing, it's looking at it as a game changer, not as another tool or another process. When you think about, okay, well, why would my people do it? You're giving them a voice. One of the biggest stumbling blocks that we see with advocacy is, why should I do it? So again, using AI to say, well, A, it's easy, but B, we want to profile you. We want your insights, your thoughts. Again, I think, as I said earlier, I'm not sure if it's just you and I chatting or if we said this here. Not just the people who shout loud enough. And
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, if we think about critical talent and talent of the future, it's a whole different persona of people that don't necessarily shout loud. They might be remote. You can't know them all. So how do you allow them to have a voice, and how do you leverage the power of them and their networks, and get their perspective if you're not using AI to bring them into the fold?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the one of the really interesting parts about it. I think you can do so much with it, but I think it's you also realizing what it can do for you, do for the community that you're trying to build, do for the colleagues that you're trying to engage. I think it can have loads of benefits that you might not even realize are there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'm looking at the time. Oh,
Breathe.
honestly, I feel like we are so much more controlled and thoughtful of each other's space and speaking here. Normally we're going off on one, and this is Claire and I practice, folks, where we're trying to keep focused for you guys. You see us behind the scenes. Honestly, it's quite hilarious. But thank you. So everyone take your breath. Before we move into sort of the last part of our top 3 of the topics for today, which is I think, the subject really close to certainly Claire, my heart, but certainly Claire's experience, to create a candidate-centric journey that can actually set you apart. So it's not the tried and tested, or it might be the tried and tested with, a little deviation. Over to you, Claire.
So this is a bit, it might be a little bit controversial, but fundamentally most of us we're quite lazy. We think about, right, and if I think about myself and I'm on a train going home after I've been in London for the day, I know logically I'm about to go through a really bad signal zone. I know that, but I'm looking at something on my phone and it won't load for 3 seconds and I get frustrated and I'm like, oh, this is really annoying. And I think that's the thing. If something doesn't work in seconds for us because we're so used to everything being at our fingertips, instantaneous, we can get it right away, and we lose interest. And it's literally been seconds before we lose interest, but we lose interest. We're already, frustrated. And so I think when you're looking at your journey, it's making it as easy and as simple as possible. Thinking of your candidate who just wants to go from A to B. They don't want to go around the houses. They don't want to tour. They don't want to go into a maze. They literally want to apply for a job, and really keeping it that simple. And I think that's where sometimes organizations and some of us ourselves can go a bit wrong, because you might go, right, I'm going to do this fancy new career site. How many steps or how many clicks do I need to get to before I get to the end goal? And you want to add in this bit and that bit and another bit, and actually it becomes a really clicky journey, and your poor candidate's gone, I'm lost. Like, I completely don't get this. I'm totally lost. And actually, one of the best things you can do is to take a step back and go, right, what works for the type of candidate that I've got? What do they want to get to? How can I make it really, really easy? I think you don't have to make it fancy. That's the thing. I think sometimes, I think I said it before, if it's not broken, don't fix it, because you don't need to. If your data, and data is so important here, but if your data is telling you that, your candidate is going from A to B and they're applying and you've got a great applier at Heroes, brilliant. If your data is telling you that you're not making it easy for your candidate to get somewhere and you've got a really high drop-off rate, then do something about it. But I think it's making it really, really simple, and consider how your candidate's feeling. Like, at every point in their journey, they're here, what do they want to see? They're over here, what do they want to see? And I think having that in front and center of your mind means you're going to create something that really works for your organization. It might not be groundbreaking, but for your organization, it's going to work really well. And what you want, whether a candidate gets the job with you or doesn't get the job with you, is to come away thinking, I had a great experience. It was easy to get the role. I might not have been successful, but I might want to go back and sign up again. If you give the candidate a bad experience, you've lost them. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, treating your candidates how you would want to be treated, but also remembering, if you think of that lazy thing in your mind, and I know it's a bit of a negative word, but how quickly do you get frustrated when something doesn't load on your phone? Think about it in like for a candidate, how quickly do they get frustrated if they can't go from A to B really easily?
Yeah, totally. I think about it like, and I think that's the real shift is that, think about it. Claire, do you have a dog?
I have a dog. Sorry, guys.
Sorry, what's the? I can't remember the dog's name.
Poppy.
Hi, Poppy. Come down, Poppy, please. We're live. We have to come and say hello. I forgot it was Poppy. I can't remember Poppy's name. Then I couldn't remember you had a dog. Anyway, I think I hear Poppy normally on the phone. Sorry, there we go. Got distracted. This is what happens to Claire and I. If we weren't going down a whole Poppy tangent here. Going back to the customer experience, though. I think about it like the candidate experience, like being a customer. I want to buy things very quickly. I buy on a whim. I don't know about you. I am such a whim buyer. Oh, that looks pretty. But, oh, I need another one of those. Oh, it's on sale. I am the worst. However, if it takes me basically longer than 2 weeks because I'm on a whim, I am buying it. So if you think about that for a candidate and they're like not looking for a job or they're vaguely interested, you need to catch them in the moment. You've gone to all this trouble of creating this experience, the content, the people, and then you're going to lose them just because it takes more than 2 clicks. And what about uploading a CV? Uploading a CV, you're on a train, folks. Like, they haven't got a CV. How do you create an environment where they can click and say, I'm interested? If you really need a CV, because that's your process, you can't shift that process right now. Get them to apply and then contact them saying, wonderful, can you send us your CV? Whatever it is you need to do. But remembering you're catching most people on a whim, not because they're going in the process of looking for a job with you, especially if it's a referral, if they're seeing a post from somebody else in your organization with a CTA of, apply now to find more. You've got to catch them right at that moment where they're even vaguely interested. So treat them like a customer. So then that leads up to the point of nurture, for example. I feel so finally thankful that I'm having conversations with organizations about nurture, right? They might not be ready then, or you talked about, silver medalists. How do you actually engage people and nurture them through the process so that they feel valued? Because they might not remember every step of the process. They might not remember if it was easy or if it was hard, to be honest as well. But they will remember how they were treated and the experience they had, right?
100%. And I think that customer, thinking of your candidate as a customer, I think is really, really important. I'm going to use a duck shop in Amsterdam for this one. So when I went to World Employer Branding Day and I was there.
Did you? I didn't see you there.
I've no idea. But we were walking down Amsterdam, like one of the high streets and stuff, and we saw this duck shop and we were quite fascinated with the ducks, and we kept walking past it and we kept wanting to go in. And then when we went in, we had this most amazing time because, it was just full of just great ducks and we both have a duck. But that aside, we had a really nice experience. And so I can guarantee if we ever go back to Amsterdam, we're going to go back into that duck shop and probably get more. You're welcome. But I think it's the thinking about how you're treated in a shop when you go into a store and you think, there might not be something here for me, but I loved going into that shop. I loved the feeling, the people really nice to me. I really had a good time versus going into a shop and it was rubbish. And the branding might be brilliant. It might be really exciting. It might be everywhere. It might be really glossy and new, but your actual experience of going into the shop was terrible. You're not going to go back there. And I think that's how to also think of that candidate-centric journey. Another bit, which I'll add in, which might be a bit of a tangent, but to your point about CVs, if you've got a really, robust, gritty, lengthy application process, and you're asking people to fill in loads of questions, So they're filling in all these questions and they're filling in these boxes that ask for their work experience or their university. And then you say, can you upload your CV? It's a bit of a, you're kind of taking them on this journey and then you're going, I still need your CV. And they're like, but I've already just, yeah. And it's like they've just written all the content from their CV into this application form for you, and then you would still want their CV. And I think it's thinking of those little things like that. And also, a lot of people will not have a CV to hand. Like I remember when I was looking for jobs years ago, people were like, can I have your CV? And I was like, oh no. And it took me ages just to go and want to write my CV because I just hated doing it. And I was still having to jump through all these hoops to talk about my experience, talk about where I'd gone to school or university or whatever, and then talk about why I would be great for the job. And all of that was already on my CV. So I think getting that candidate centricity at your journey, it's got to be everywhere. And I think if you do that, you can have really, really good journeys. My other part, I think, is also how do you help your recruiters? So if you're running really good campaigns, and you know that actually with a campaign, you're not going to be able to manage the volume of applications. How do you turn off the applications at some points? You're also helping your recruiters as well. So you're actually also helping both points. So you don't get overwhelmed with candidates. You actually have a balance of candidates. So you don't get overwhelmed with applications, and if you want to do a tailored reply, you have the resource to go and do it. But I think when you're starting out as well, think of it both ends. Think of the team that you've got implementing a bit of a campaign for you, and also think about your candidate at the end and what they want to see. So if they've not been successful, they want to get a really nice rejection email. Well, no rejection is nice, but they want to have something where it adds value.
No, you're not leaving. You haven't got the job.
Great.
You're right.
Yeah.
You love me though.
Thanks so much. But then for your recruiters, they're not feeling overwhelmed because you're not saying to them, but we need to do a tailored reply to every candidate that comes in because it's a campaign that's really important, but you've got 500 applications, off you go. So I think it's how do you balance it, and how do you really resonate with your candidates, but also as well as your team that's running things too.
Yeah, I think everyone in our community is talking about that. I mean, they're talking about how, simplification, automation, streamlining of the candidate journey. And if any of you aren't focused on that, then raise your hand, because I will not believe you. Everybody is talking about that kind of, those three things: simplification, automation, and streamlining. Because what they are trying to do is, like we're saying, is if they can streamline the process, the journey, then those smaller, then things get better internally and externally, which is basically what you're saying, is that if you simplify things for both you as an organization and for your candidates, then those touch points become fewer. Then those touch points become better experience. Like, it's much easier to create 5 great experiences than 15. And that's where I think things fall through the cracks. So I think organizations are thinking about how they can do this internally to save time, and to your point, increase responses, but increase the right responses. So how can they be thoughtful about what they're doing? Because I think, otherwise they're often so focused internally that we forget about the experience. So I think if you can simplify and streamline your processes internally, and then also the experience for a candidate, then you can focus on making that experience much better. And then I think with that as well, we talk a lot about personalization. We talk about candidates' journey, talk a lot about like hyper-personalization. Going back to your pet hate earlier, Claire, I'm just trying to bring this home now. Hyper-personalization, is it a buzzword or is it valuable? I mean, I'm a bit biased because of what we do at the Martech. But so I'd like to, if nobody's going to believe me, you all believe me. I'm honest Joe, right? Speak to Claire. What are your thoughts? Buzzword or valuable?
Go for it. I think you've got to go for your value, don't you? I think you've got to create something that's really meaningful for you, but actually just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean you have to do it as well. I think that's one of the key things.
Yeah, okay, exactly. So look, we've literally got 5 minutes left. So yeah, right. Even with Breathe, we managed to talk and go in circles. But I think, really bringing this back is like, you've got to put yourself, you said this, Claire, you've got to put yourself in the candidate's shoes. Do you meet my needs? And if you don't, right, just that's literally, you've got to think, lazy candidate. I'm just taking Claire's or the one thing she doesn't want to remember she said through this. Do you meet needs? Because if they don't, you've lost them. So how do you try and attract and engage people in an instance and talk their language, basically? So and think about why you're trying to do it. So let's look at D&I on everyone's mind, for example. Why are you trying to attract D&I? Tell them the stories. What does that mean? What are you trying to do with the business? And we saw some great stuff at Worldy B-Day, for example, when I think it was Supermarket Kaufland showed that they weren't afraid to put their money where their mouth is and showcase their existing diverse talent. And you and I were sitting there. It was actually one of the best things that I liked there, because they weren't sitting behind political correctness. They basically outright said there's a market of talent that can't work, or that are struggling to find work and can't work. We want to hire them. It was so personal and open and honest, and say, why we need people. There is a market out there of people that can work with us. It was just brilliant, right?
And it was really inclusive as well. I think that was a nice thing. And then we're going after a section of people that they needed to get more talent from. So I think when you're with that balance in mind, when it comes to DE&I, a lot of people go, I need to hire more women, I need to hire people from this ethnic minority. But actually, you've got to think to yourself, what are the right strategies to do that? And be bold when you are doing it, because actually it's absolutely fine to go after a different set of people, because that's what you want to do. But I think don't try and hide behind something else as well. Like, actually, if you're going to make it candidate centric, you're going to have to make sure that it's really tailored and speaks to them. And I think it takes something like that to make sure things resonate. Like, there's a reason why marketing works really well and it doesn't break us. And those marketing strategies, they're tried and tested. Like, your data doesn't lie. Your data is there to tell you the story, and you just need to make sure that you're interpreting it, always looking at it and going, okay, is this working? What do I need to change? Like, after every campaign, what are you changing? What are you going to do? Like, do you review every campaign after you've done it to go, what didn't work very well? Okay, great, I got hires, I got diversity, I got X, Y, and Z, but actually, what didn't I do well? And I think if you keep doing that, you'll keep creating a journey that really focuses on your candidate.
Yeah, agreed. And for me, talking about sort of data, everything that traditional marketing based off, but I'm going to sort of bring up the swear word for a bit to bring us home, which is about, I think the reality of all this is about outcomes. It's about hiring critical talent at the end of the day. And what traditional marketing function has done well is setting hard goals that are super measurable, right? And I think employer brand, talent attraction function has actually often really struggled to do that. Let's be real, right? And I think we could do a whole other session of outcomes of what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to build talent pools, hit D&I goals, transformation goals. Like, what are the hard tactics you're going to use to get there? What are the benchmarks at each part of that journey? And then thinking, okay, how can AI impact those, improve conversion? Yeah. How can your people improve conversion? How can their networks help you hire? Employer content and talent marketing, how can they all create the outcomes you want? Put a hard metric against each of them. And when I worked at LinkedIn, every day we lived and breathed working backwards from your outcome. And we try and do the same now. For example, you need to hire 100 engineers. So you need 2.3 million impressions to get X, which benchmarks in your industry would be I'm not going to bore you with that, but it was really hard. And you have to start saying, well, if you need 100 engineers, what's the top of the funnel and which parts of that journey are broken? And what resources and tools and people do we do to lift the KPIs at every stage of that journey?
And I think my final point in it would be, if you know what your outcome is, figure out how to get to your outcome and then plan the journey, rather than try and go along the journey and hope that you achieve the outcome. I think it's just working backwards. It's a different way of working, but it really, really helps.
Yeah. All right. Love this. Chelsea's just posted, if you want any questions, please email this, because we're at time. Thank you so much, Claire. Like, this has been amazing. The only thing I will say is, for those of you who known us, that this has never been so controlled. Normally we're all shouting at each other in excitement. So I feel like next time we need to just record the workshop. But there's a lot of insight here. If anyone wants any more details, then literally message us post-event if you think of any questions or anything like that. We want to let you get on with your evenings, your mornings, etc., etc. Claire, it's been a delight as always. Thank you, Poppy, for
brilliant.
Making a little cameo appearance. But next time, don't be camera shy, Poppy. And we'll chat soon.
Definitely. Thank you, everyone.
And good luck, everyone, hiring in 2024. As Claire said earlier, but forgot to say, 2024 isn't the year to ghost your candidate. Sorry, I just stole your line. Oh, cheers, guys.